Okay, and I'm gonna share my screen. I have a very short presentation prepared. I had to do it because Robert set the bar really high with the first training. Okay, let me share my
Robert
screen.
is so annoying sometimes, isn't he?
Yes, I know.
That's what we mean when we say he's too smart for his own good.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Welcome everyone. This is our first Ex Libris Users of Qatar Alma Fulfillment Training Session. This session is being recorded, like Robert mentioned earlier, and it will be uploaded to the ELUQ website afterwards. So what we'll cover in this session today are the common circulation activities within Alma. And I just want to say that during the course of this presentation, if you have any question, feel free to stop me and ask. I'll be happy to answer. And if you prefer, you can always stop your questions in chat. Robert has kindly offered to monitor the chat for me, and then he's going to read out the questions out loud if there are any questions in the chat. So let's look at the topics that we'll cover here today. These are some of the topics, not all of them. I didn't want to put all the details here on this one slide. And the things that I'm going to be talking about won't necessarily be in this order. But what you'll learn how to do today is to register a new user, how to delete a user. Then we'll talk about a little bit about loans, requests and returns. Then we'll look at the quick user management page. And then after that, we'll look at user details in more detail. I also want to mention that Alma has pretty good documentation on all of these things. And if you would like to know more, that's a good place to start. And of course, in the future, if you have any questions and I have an answer to those questions, just feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. Okay, so I'm going to shut down the PowerPoint presentation and I'm going to share my Alma screen. Okay, let me see. Okay, Leah has to leave. That's fine. We can move on. I'll share my Alma screen and we can begin. Okay, can you see my Alma?
Yes.
Okay, great, perfect. Okay, so this is the first fulfillment training. So we're going to start with something that's pretty basic. And we're going to look at the fulfillment up here. And in this drop-down menu, there are a lot of things that you can do within fulfillment. But in this first training, we'll only focus on check-in and check-out. And that these two functions here, manage patron services and return items. I just want to briefly mention something regarding terminology, because it might be a bit confusing if you're not used to Alma. Fulfillment actually means circulation, but Alma doesn't necessarily use fulfillment everywhere. So it seems as if it uses fulfillment and circulation interchangeably. Like for example, up here, where we have the locations, Qatar circulation desk. And then if you read the documentation, if you play around with the system a little bit, you will see the mention of circulation in several other places as well. But just so you know that it means the same thing as fulfillment. And then another thing I want to mention is that Alma also, in most places, uses the term user to refer to a patron. But in some places, it also uses the term patron. So these two are used interchangeably. So, okay, let's start. We'll look at the one of these two functions to begin with. And what I want to show you is when you want to switch between check-in and check-out, you don't necessarily have to go up here every single time to do it. You can just switch between the two pages by clicking here. Go to return items or go back to patron services. So for the purpose of this training, I would like to start with go to return items because this section is shorter. So I would like to cover this section first, although it would probably make more sense to check something out first and then check it back in. Okay, so in Alma, there are two ways to return items, and this can be done in bulk or individually. So in bulk check-in is what we're looking at now. What this really means is that you would use this function to return items that are loaned to more than one patron, because whenever an item is returned in Alma, a return receipt letter is sent to a patron. So if you use this page to return items and you have, let's say, 10 books returned by the same patron, that patron will receive 10 emails. So there is another way to return items, and that's going to be the individual one, and I'm going to show you that later. And if you do it that way, then Alma will send only one receipt letter listing all the items that have been returned. So I have a few barcodes here just to show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Alma is a little bit slow today. I'm sorry. I hope it's going to get better later on. Okay. And I want to thank my colleagues who have allowed me to experiment with their accounts. So this one has been checked out to Robert. I checked it in now. And then another one checked out to Saul. And then I have one more. So this one actually has a hold. So the destination for this book is going to be Hold Shelf. I placed a hold on it and the book was returned by Saul. So if you look at here and you will see Robert's name twice. So this would mean that he would receive 2 emails for the books that he's returned. This section here, override return date and time. This actually allows you to backdate a return if you need to. And one example when you could use this is, for example, if your library is charging late return fines and the book has been returned in a book drop maybe over the weekend, you could backdate it for 2 days, and this way the fee wouldn't apply. Okay. Is everything clear so far? No questions? Okay, great. Let's move on. So I'm going to go back to the patron services page. And here, before we search for any of the patrons, I want to show you how to register a new patron. So there's a button up here on the right-hand side. So you just click on that, register a new user. So this is the quick user management. This is where the user information gets entered. And then you can see these little asterisks here next to some of the fields. These are the mandatory fields. So these are that's the minimum what you have to enter in order to be able to create an account. So the first name and last name are pretty straightforward. And the middle name as well. We also have the preferred first name, middle name, and last name. If these fields are populated, then the names entered here will be used in places where name appears in Alma, for example, in Alma letters, instead of the real first and last name. Then here we have a primary identifier. This field gets automatically populated. but you can delete this and use the identifier that you normally use in your library. In our library, this is a student number or staff number. Here you can select a title, also pretty straightforward. The next field is PIN number. This PIN number actually serves only as a password for the user to log on to the self-checkout machine. We don't have that set up in our library. Job category. This also isn't something that we use, but for example, our main campus library has 2 categories listed here. Job description. This is a free text description of a person's responsibilities. So you can just, write as much as you want in here. We have gender here. The next one is user group. We have a lot of them, but in Qatar, we mostly use Qatar staff, Qatar faculty, and undergraduate. Here, you can select a campus. We have our main campus, we have Qatar campus, and downtown campus. The preferred language. This is the language that's been set for email correspondences in Alma. And the language must be enabled in the institution languages mapping table. If I click here, you'll be able to see that there are many languages, but we use only English. Birth date, that's pretty clear. The expiration date for the account. Purge date is the date when the user will be purged from the system. The resource sharing library, if you select the library here, then this actually means that this is the library that's responsible for resource sharing requests initiated by the specific user. And the purchase request library is the library responsible for purchase requests initiated by this user. Here we have a button that we can click on to look at the selected patron letters. So these are all of the letters that could be sent for this patron. And here you can check or uncheck any of these boxes. These things might look different in your system depending on how it's set up. So let's look at the next section, the user management information. The first one is whether the patron has institutional record or not. So what this actually means is whether the patron is an external patron or an internal one. If I click here that the patron is external, that means that the information is updated in the system by the external system synchronization process. In our case, this is our banner system. And here you can see that the only system is patrons, and this would set up an external account. If I wanted to create an account that's an internal one, I would click no here. And here you can set a password. So as long as the password isn't changed afterwards in Primo, this password will remain valid both for Primo and for Alma. But this part here, force password change on next login, if I select this one, this will apply only to Alma password, not Primo password. The next field is email type. So this is another mandatory field. So we have a total of 4 mandatory fields. Here you can select the type of email address and enter the email address here. And the same goes for addresses and phone numbers, but these are not mandatory fields. So I'm just going to quickly create one internal account so that we can later on delete it. I'm going to enter the first name and the last name. I'll add my own identifier here. And the email address. Okay, that's done. Now I just need to click on update user. Okay, just one moment. Okay, I didn't select this. You also need to select the type of the email address. Now, update user. Now Bob Cobb has an Alma account. Okay, I'm going to click down here, and we're going to go back to Patron services. Okay, so now I want to explain what each of these mean. So if the find user in another institution is selected, this would be used, for example, to register a walk-in patron that's a patron in another institution that's within the fulfillment network. We don't use that here in Qatar, but our main campus is part of a consortium, so this is something that they would use. If I started typing here, just 1 second. Okay, I need to refresh the page, sorry. It's supposed to give me a list of institutions here. When I click on the square, yeah. Here you can see all the institution in the consortium. As I said, we don't use it, but just so you know, it's there. I'm going to uncheck this box now. And here is where we search for a patron. We can search by scanning in their ID number or by typing their name. If you're typing, it takes a little while for the name to pop up. If you type really quickly and then just hit enter, it won't show you any results. It's going to seem as if there's no patron by that name. Okay. So if I click go now, this will take us to my account. But there's another thing I want to show you before we move on to looking at a user account, and that's the history button here. So next time I don't have to type in my name, I can just select it here from the drop-down menu. And the history here saves the 5 last searches that you did, so the last 5 names. I want to show you how to use a proxy. This is also something that we don't do at Georgetown, but it might be useful in certain cases. For example, if you have faculty members who sometimes send students to the library to borrow books on their behalf, and then the students come with the ID of a faculty member, or if they just come and tell you that they want to borrow on their behalf, or if a faculty member, for example, has a research assistant. It's really useful if this is set up. So okay, I'm going to click here, use proxy. And for the purpose of this training, I set myself as Robert's proxy. So first I need to select my name and then click go. And here you can see I'm a proxy for Robert Lowe's. So now if I click go, what's going to happen is Alma is going to open Robert's account. But if you look at here, you can see that I'm the one who is doing the borrowing. So it can be useful because it's easy to keep track of who borrowed what. Okay. Let's go back and then we'll start with, I actually said that I didn't need to type and then I started typing. Okay, we can do it this way. Okay, so this is my account. And I will go through all of these elements that are part of this account. And I'll start up here with my user details. So here you can see my name. The active balance here means that I have a fine of $10 US. And don't worry, Donna, it's just for the purpose of this training. If I wanted to pay for this fine, I could just click here on the pay button. And then here, so I have only one fine, so all fines are selected. If I had several different fines, I could select specific fines and then, select the one that I want to pay. And this is you can see the amount here. You can enter the comment and click send. Okay, let's go back. Oh, well, this was bound to happen, I guess, at least once during this training. Let's give it another second. Come on, Alma. Sorry about this, folks. Let's try opening it once more.
You have to click your red heels together.
I'm not wearing any heels. I'm all dressed up. I'm even wearing makeup for this occasion, but no heels. Okay. And we're back. So this here is my ID, my primary ID. If I click on this link, it will take me to a list of all the identifiers on my account, and we'll look at these a little bit later. And my user group is Qatar staff. So let's look at these quick links here on the right-hand side, and I'll tell you what you can do with each of these. Send activity report. This basically sends an email to the patron listing all the items that are on their account at the moment of sending the letter. Send request report. This will send an email listing all the requests that are ready to be picked up. So this is useful if, for example, you have something sitting on a whole shelf for a little while, and this could be a reminder to the person that, you know, this book is still on the whole shelf. You can just email them this way. And we have send return receipt here. At our library, we have disabled the returned letters just because they were annoying. We had a feeling that people were receiving too many emails from Alma. But if you wanted to send a return receipt, you could do it from here. Here on the right-hand side, we have user notes. And you can see here, I have 1 overdue items in the library. I have 1 item waiting for pickup, and this is the hold that was activated earlier when I checked in the book that was checked out the soul and had a hold on it. And I have here to allow my husband to borrow from the library. If you add a new note and it's not displayed here, you can click here on refresh blocks notes, and it should appear here. And notes can also be edited by clicking on this link. So now let's look at the bottom part of the screen. We'll start with loans. If you see this little dog ear here, this actually means that there's something in this tab. If there's no dog ear, then there's nothing in the tab. Before I start checking things out, I want to show you this create item link here. If I click here, a window pops up. This is something that we use, for example, for ILL items. And this way we're able to create a short record for a book that we borrow from another library. And then this way we can check it out to our patron. So I'm going to show you how this works. So it's a new holding. I'm going to click choose. And this is the quick cataloging page. The only required field is title. But when we do this, we usually fill in a title and an author. As long as this box here is checked, it will suppress this item from discovery. It means it won't show in the library catalog. So make sure you have this checked. And the only other field that's a mandatory field is the location field. So here from the drop-down menu, I will be able to choose a location. So let's say I have a library here. The page is going to refresh. And then it's going to allow me to add a barcode here. Select the material type, or the item policy for this item. And once you're done entering all this information, just click save, and this item will be checked out to the patron, in this case to myself. Okay, but for now I'm just going to click cancel. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so let's borrow some things. Okay, I have barcode here. Check out a book to myself. Okay, so the book is checked out, and you can see it here. And if you look at here, it's clear that you're only seeing the loans of this session. If you want to see everything else that I have on loan, you would have to click here and choose from the drop-down menu, all loans. Now you can see everything that I have on my account. Okay, let's look at these links here. So you can renew a book from here. You just need to select the one you want and click renew. If you want to renew all, you can click here. If you want to manually change a date for a book, you need to select which one, click change due date. But bear in mind, if you change a due date manually, this will prevent the system from renewing automatically if this has been set up. We have this symbol here, export list. This actually, you'll be seeing this symbol in other pages as well. This will allow you to export the list in Excel. And then we have this little pinwheel here on the right-hand side. This basically just shows you the columns that are displayed in this record. And you can check or uncheck the ones that you want. For example, I can check call number. I think it might be useful to see it. And then I just click done. And now I have a new column here displaying call numbers. You can see that each title here is actually a link. So if you click on any of these links, it's going to show you a loan history for this item. If you click on the barcode, this is going to open the physical item editor. So I want to go over these actions here that are listed. And what you can do from here is you can renew a book. The work order lets you place an item in process. So we can look at this one. Okay, here we have various process types listed. This isn't something that we use much, at least not the circulation staff. It's probably used more in a bigger library where you have books going from one department to another. Then we can also look at loan history, the same as if we clicked on the title. So here we can see the details on my loan. And these actions here, it says loan, but some other that you might see listed here would be recalled, renewed, lost, claim returned, and so on. So from here, you can flip a book to lost. If you do it this way, the book will be removed from this Patron account, and the lost item replacement fee will be automatically added to this Patron. I'm not going to do that now. You can do a claim return. In this case, the book will still remain on the account, but any fines that were accrued up to that point will also remain on the account, but no new fines will be accrued after claiming it as returned. You can also delete alone from here. So what this does really is, if you have an item that's flipped to lost in your account because it's been long overdue, and you select the delete loan, this will automatically change the status for the book to missing. But if you delete an active loan, this will just check it in. And this is, and the only scenario when I can think of that we could use this is, for example, if the material that a patron borrowed is kind of sensitive and they wouldn't want it to stay on their record, then you could go in and delete a loan. And this way it wouldn't even appear in their history. You can manually change the due date, just like clicking up on this link. You can view notes that are attached to this item, but I think we have none here. View queue, so you can see who's the next in line if there's a request on the same book. View policies, this is going to open the fulfillment configuration utility, and view hidden is just going to show you the hidden columns, so the ones that are not displayed here. Any questions so far? No? Okay, great. Everything's clear. Oh, do we have something here? No. Okay. Let's move on to requests. To returns, sorry. If you want to return a book, you would just scan the barcode here. And like I said, if you have the return receipts enabled and you have a bunch of books returned by one patron, this is where you would go and return them from here. Because this way, they would all be listed in the same return receipt letter. So it would be one email. Here we're seeing the returns of this session. If I had more, I could go to all returns. Bear in mind that all the returns stay on their account only for a limited period of time. So if I were to check tomorrow, this tab would be empty. This tab shows you requests. So these are the items that I requested. And here you can see that this one has a pick it from shelf here. It means that it's available, but hasn't been picked up and checked in yet. This one hasn't been started because it's checked out and I'm the first one in a queue for this book. And this one is on hold shelf because it was returned earlier today. If you want to submit a request, you would go up here and click on submit request. And then just search for the title that you want to request. Okay. The network activity is also something that we don't use because the network here refers actually to the network zone that we're not really part of, but our main campus is. Whatever you do in an account, if you check something out to someone or if you return it, after you're done, you have to click on done. Up here on the right-hand side corner button done. Because we realized that if an account stays open and then the page refreshes itself, no emails will be sent out to the patron. So if they borrow something and you don't click done, the email letter will not be sent to the patron. Okay, let's look at editing users. Up here, we have a button called Edit User Info. So this is the quick user management. And here we can see the user details, user management information, and addresses and phone numbers. What you may notice here is that some fields are shaded in gray. And if I hover over them, there's this little symbol showing me that I can't edit these fields. This is because some of the fields in Alma are protected from editing. And I'm going to show you later on how to open them for editing. So we already talked about the selected patron letters. And then there's the showing letters. Okay. So here you can see that my account is an external account, belongs to patrons. And basically on this page, the only thing that you can change is the fields that are not shaded in gray. So only the white ones. And if you change something, you need to click on Update User up here. If you want to look at more information, then you need to click here on this link, Full Information. Okay, so now this is all the information on my account. We have a button up here that's called Toggle Account Type. If you were to click here, this would switch this account between external and internal. And here we have another button that's called Open for Update. So I mentioned just now that the shaded fields cannot be edited unless you open them for update. So if I click here, a pop-up will appear. And see, it's telling us that this is an external account and that it will be overwritten by next synchronization. And it says that the following fields may be protected from being overwritten. So only these fields that are listed here can be protected from being overwritten. Not all the fields. So if I say, it says, would you like to prevent these fields from being overwritten? Yes. So now if I change anything like a user group, for example, that was white, it wasn't shaded, or the language, it would stay like this. But if I were to change any of these fields here that were shaded, it's going to let me change them. It's going to let me stay. But by next synchronization, they're going to go back to the original values. I hope that this makes sense.
Yep, makes
So
sense.
the only, makes sense? Okay. So the only new field that we have here is the status. So it's just telling me that my account is active, but here I could make it inactive as well. And here we have something neat. It actually allows you to compose an email and send it to this patron from within their account. So if I click on compose, this is what it looks like. So you have to have a subject line, and then maybe you could say, hey, reminder to pick up books. And it could be sent from the library email. It doesn't have to be sent from your personal email. So this is why it's a neat feature. So if I type something in and click send, it's gonna instantly show in my mailbox. Okay. And down here we have the user roles listed. These are all the roles that have been assigned to me. And users may be assigned multiple roles, as you know, and then they would all be listed here. So currently these are all active, but if I were to click on any of these, this would make them inactive. So the next tab is the contact information. On this page, you can manage contact information. So you can manage addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses. You can edit them, you can delete them, you can duplicate them, and you can also add new ones. And then once again, here you can export everything to Excel. And that's about it for this page. Let's move on to the identifiers. So my ID here, that's my primary identifier, but any account can have more than one identifier, and then they will be listed here. They can be added manually. In my case, I have a barcode number. That's the barcode that's printed on the back side of my card. And my university ID, the Georgetown Net ID. And here I can make it inactive or flip it back to active, or I can edit it, delete it, or duplicate it. If you want to add an identifier, you need to click here, and then you can select the type and enter the value here. And as I said earlier, whatever changes you make, don't forget to click save here afterwards. Let's look at the notes tab. So this is where you can see my allow my husband to borrow note. This is just one of the possible notes that you can add. You can have any kind of note that you want. There are certain types here, but everything else you could maybe just select circulation and then write maybe returned a damaged book or forgot laptop cable or whatever else. And if you select here this box user viewable, this means that this note will be viewable to the patron in their Primo account. And it can also be a pop-up note, so whenever you open this account in Alma, this note will pop. The next one is blocks. I don't have any blocks, but if you wanted to add a block, this is where you would do it. So you would just click here, add block. Here we have the ones that we use the most: leave of absence, grad clearance, study abroad, and so on. We would just select one of those. And then if you set the date here, this is actually the date on which this block will expire. So it's going to become inactive. So if this is supposed to be a permanent block, then don't set the expiry date. Okay, the next tab, we can look at fines and fees. So I have just one fine here. It's an equipment fine, and it's a fake one. But if I wanted, I could waive it by selecting it and clicking here. You can also manually add a fine by clicking here. You can export them to Excel. And then if you click here, you see you can waive it, you can dispute it, you can link it to a specific item, and then view hidden, it's just going to show you the columns that are not listed here. So I'm just going to waive this fine. I have no intention of paying that. This is what it looks like, the amount, the reason. You can just add a comment, click waive, and confirm, and this fine will be removed from my account. Okay. Statistics. So you can basically add additional statistical categories to the user, specifically to use in analytics report. And this must be configured in the user management configuration area. We don't have it configured, but it's a possibility. The next one is attachments. This is where you would go to check all the emails that were previously sent to this patron. So for example, if you had a student who comes to the library and says, you know, hey, I never got this notification, or I never checked this out, you could go back to attachments and find the email that was sent to the patron. If I wanted to view it, I could click here. I can also edit it, delete it, download it, or resend it. The next one is proxy. I already mentioned that for the purpose of this presentation, I set myself as Robert's proxy. So this is where you can do it. If you want to add a proxy, you just click here and then select a name. So you can do that for Sol. Now I'm a proxy for Sol as well. And the last tab here is history. This is pretty useful because Alma tracks everything that's going on within an account. So any action that's done in an account will be recorded here. So for example, this is the last thing I did. You can see who the operator is and which action was performed. So if you find a mistake, maybe you can go back here and check the history to see who made a mistake or what kind of mistake was made. Okay, so this is everything that I had to show you in a Patron record. So there's only one last thing that I want to show you and that's how to delete a patron, because you've probably noticed so far that nowhere in this record did you see delete patron. And that's because you cannot delete a patron from within the patron record. This is something that you would normally do from here, admin, and manage users. But the quickest way to do it is here, to search for a user in this persistent search box. So I'm just gonna search for our Bob. That's our Bob. Here you can see that this account is internal. And here I can just click delete. Come on, Alma. Yes, I'm sure. Bye, Bob. Okay, it's deleted. So this was an internal account, and the system let me delete it, and it's going to stay deleted. But if this were an external account managed by an external system, it would let me delete it the same way, but after the next synchronization, the account would appear back in the system. I hope that's clear. Okay, any questions now? No?
Nothing in chat, but I had a question. What is a block? What does it do? What's the idea behind a block?
A block?
Yeah.
Well, if an account is blocked, that it means it's not active. It cannot be used by a patron. It can be temporarily. For example, if they're away for, I don't know, semester abroad, or if they take a leave of absence, you would block their account. So, and for us, it's because if I cannot delete an external account, but at least I can block it, and this way it will be clear that this account is not being used currently or permanently. Yeah, and then it's gonna be purged at one point by the system.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? From the survivors, I see that some of you have left.
No, you did a really good job. It was very clear. I learned some stuff that I should have known, but I didn't. So that's good.
Yeah,
Me too. I love the fact that you can see what emails you have been sent to users. I didn't realize that. That helps a lot.
That is so cool. We use that.
Well, we don't really use all of these functions either, but I think we might start using some because some of them are really useful. Yeah, but I think it's good to know what they're for.
Well, checking emails.
I'm glad.
With some of our faculty that never get messages, you can just resend the message to them, which is cool.
Yes.
Very good.
And also it's very useful when they come to the circulation desk saying like, okay, I received an email for a recommendation for a book and they didn't write down the call number. So you can go to the Patron and check the email and then you have the call number of the book. So it's very useful for those situations too.
Thank you, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super. Thank you.
Yes, we're done.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, the documentation is
about Proxy.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I didn't know that either.
I learned about Proxy. I didn't know that, how to create a proxy for someone. and I should have.
It's very simple. Well, the only tricky thing there is that you will really have to rely on the faculty member to notify you who's going to be their proxy, and also when they stop being their proxy. But, you know, I think it's a good thing. I would prefer that to students coming and just saying, hey, this faculty member sent me to pick up a book for them.
For sure.
So
I agree.
it's a useful thing.
Thank you very much, Mirta.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome,
that was
everyone.
excellent.
Okay,
Thank
now I need to drink some water. My mouth is dry. Well, if you think of any other questions that you might have forgotten to answer, or if you run into something that you don't know how to do, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to help, and also check Alma documentation. I know it's a little bit complex, and you know, not everything is in one place, and you just need to keep going back and forth and following all these links, so it can be a little bit confusing, but it can also be useful. But if you need anything from me, you know where to find me. And thank you everyone for attending, and I'll see you next week in the next one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I love your background. Looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next week.
Way too many
Oh,
chairs,
yeah.
though. You got to get rid of some of those.
Oh, right.
No.
Spread it.
That's right. Next week we'll do resource management. So if you haven't signed up for it yet, go to the website and sign up.
Excellent.
Good to see
Thank you.
everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys.
See you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Thank
attending.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mirta.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.